Game week 38 is the final game week of the season, and in today's video we're going to be discussing my transfer targets as we look to finish the season strong and end inside the top 5k. Now, before we dive into today's video, of course, if you do enjoy any of the content that you see on the channel, please be sure to like, comment and subscribe, as it is massively appreciated by me. Let's of course take a look at how our team got on in game week 37, and it was a pretty good week so far. Obviously, I'm filming this before the Tuesday night games, obviously Bournemouth versus Manchester City, and of course Wolves versus Crystal Palace. I'm not too sure really which way they could go, but I'm hoping that, you know, one of the players doesn't even feature, maybe a KDB or a Munoz, because then we would get a concert 15-pointer off the bench, and we definitely would be inside the top 5k already heading into the final game week of the season, which would be absolutely stupendous if that was the case. But as you can see, overall the team did fantastically well. We went with the Watkins captain, a very popular captain pick for this game week. It's kind of worked out really because no one else, the other popular picks, the Embuemos, didn't really do too much. Obviously he missed that penalty. If he'd have put that away, you know, we probably would have been kicking ourselves, because there was a period in time where we were thinking about giving him the armband. Rodgers did well, Visser did well, Bowen continues to do well and makes himself look a great captaincy option heading into the final game week of the season. But heading into these two last games, there isn't anybody that can really do any sort of major damage to our rank. So hopefully we should be finishing, like I said, within those top 6k. If we can obviously get some jam luck and potentially get ourselves a Konza off the bench, we could find ourselves already in the top 5k. But overall, in a pretty decent position heading into the final game week of the season. Let's move on then. Let's take a look at how the team is lining up before we make any transfers. And as you can see, I'm pretty happy with everything as is, to be honest. I don't think there's necessarily a need to make any transfers. Of course, if there were, I think maybe Mohamed Salah potentially could be a player I want to get rid of. Depending on how KDB looks tonight, whether or not he starts is going to be a big factor on whether or not I do keep him for his final Manchester City game. Then, of course, we've got the Crystal Palace players who, of course, I will want to be looking to get rid of. So maybe we get rid of Mateta, bringing him forward, and obviously drop one of either Salah, KDB, potentially Rodgers for their games as well. But overall, I think the team is in a really good place, and I think I'm going to have some big decisions to make regarding who I want to bench, who I want to captain, and of course, who I want to bring in. But let's look at those transfer targets then. Starting off first, I'm going to take a look at the betting data from Rob T FPL. He's been an absolute legend throughout the course of this season. So, of course, if you do want to go and check out his Twitter, it is on screen right now. He's done some absolutely amazing work this season, and thoroughly deserves all the support that he can get. We've got some big projected goals heading into this game week, and he also put a post out earlier saying that there's a 20% chance of I think it was like a 5+ scoreline or something like that. I'll find the tweet and I'll include it in one of my next videos. But yeah, I was looking for it on last week's deadline stream. There is always a lot of goals on the final day, and looking at the betting markets here, they are also predicting plenty of goals, whether that be in the Bournemouth Leicester game, Newcastle Everton, Arsenal Southampton, Liverpool Palace, City Fulham, Brighton Tottenham. There are goals flying absolutely everywhere in this final game week of the season. It could be a real tasty affair, to be honest. Obviously, the fixtures that I would be looking to target heading into this week where I've not got any players, of course, I'm looking at that Bournemouth fixture. I would maybe want somebody like an Evan Nielsen, a Cliver, a Semenyo for probably that one. Newcastle, if Isak is fit and available, could worm himself back within the side. Of course, they're still in that race for top 4 football as well. Brighton with really good projected goal numbers. I think they could be maybe one that we do look at. Of course, if Tottenham win the Europa League, they're probably on the piss. If they lose it, they know their season's over. Ange's probably going to get the sack, and a lot of players maybe will be looking towards that exit door as well. So Brighton could be an interesting prospect as well for some potential players, maybe like a Matoma, a João Pedro could also feature within our kind of transfer targets heading into this week. But let's take a look at the ones that I've identified so far for my team. Starting off first with the premium replacements for Mohamed Salah or KDB if we did want to get rid of either of these guys. Now, of course, Mohamed Salah has only had 2 attacking returns since game week 30. It's just not been good enough since Liverpool, of course, won the league. And I think, you know, Arsenal, it's a difficult one because they're not really going to be playing for anything. Some of the quotes coming out around Arteta, I think maybe they do give Saka a game off potentially, or, reduce minutes for this one. But it is Southampton. We know how poor they've been throughout the course of this season. Despite recent improved defensive displays, they still are rock bottom for XG conceded. They've been pretty much sat there since the start of the season. They've been absolutely woeful, and it would not see me to surprise them, obviously go and batter them on this final game of the season with Arsenal. Would I give him the captain's armband? I don't think so right now, but would he be a player I would like to have in the team? Obviously, he could cause some massive carnage on the final day against the Saints. I think definitely so. But one of the big stats that Golden Goal pointed out to me on a stream we did earlier last week was the fact that Saka's only scored 6 goals this season. The majority of his attacking returns have been made up of assists as well, so it is putting me off him as a potential captaincy option as well with that decent fixture. So is it worth actually bringing him in, or is it just giving Mohamed Salah that one final game, because he does have a pretty good final day record as well that we could of course go for. On the flip side, we've got Cole Palmer. Again, his recent performances over the past 10 to 15 game weeks have been pretty abysmal, haven't they really? But it's a massive clash against Nottingham Forest on the final day. There's lots to still be playing for with obviously Palmer, Nottingham Forest, Chelsea, both of these sides looking to secure Champions League football next season. So that could be one of those games where it ebbs and flows, goals going in either directions, all the kind of stuff you want to see from a football match, especially on the final day, all the dramatics. That could be one, and obviously I like to have players that still have stuff to play for. Obviously they're going to be giving that 110%, whereas you feel like somebody like Saka, Arsenal have got second secured. There's nothing else for them really to achieve this season. It might just be one of those where he kind of plays at a pedestrian level, kind of more towards the 60, 70, 80%, rather than Palmer that's going to be on those top levels, because he will want to get, of course, Champions League football for next season for Chelsea. In terms of the striker then, I kind of alluded to it there. It is Evan-Neilson. I do feel like I am lacking a potential Bournemouth player heading into this final day. Great projected goal numbers on the betting markets from Rob T FPL, so it would be a great one to, of course, have within our side heading into the final match day as well. 1 goal, 1 assist in his past 4 appearances. The date has been okay, but he has just been one of those players that has ticked on very, very nicely. And I do feel he'll be a very, very popular asset come next season as well, when we are starting to build our Game Week 1 drafts. But like I said, it is all about just trying to get a Bournemouth player within this side. But do I start him ahead of Morgan Rogers? Do I start him ahead of Mohamed Salah? I'm still a little bit uncertain on whether this is the correct move. I'm going to have a look, of course, at his head-to-head record and see how he got on against Leicester earlier in the season, and maybe that could sway the decision. But like I said, I do want to get a Bournemouth player in there, but is Evan-Neilson the one? I'm not 100% convinced. So the other one that I am looking at is on this midfielder list, and it is going to be Semenyo. Obviously, again, 1 goal, 1 assist in this past few game weeks. It just is that Leicester fixture that is tempting me, and it is the strong projected numbers that I really, really want to target a Bournemouth player. I know they've got absolutely nothing to play for, but still, I think they could potentially do some big damage on the final day of the season and kind of really just round things off as a nice campaign for them overall. So Semenyo as well could be in the shop window for Manchester United this summer as well, so maybe wants to put in a decent final day performance as well. That could potentially add, an extra 10,000 to his paycheck, or of course Bournemouth maybe will be going add an extra few million onto that price tag as well if you put in a decent performance. So hopefully that is the case. Like I said, I do want to try and get a Bournemouth player in. It is just trying to pick who is going to be that correct Bournemouth asset heading into the final game week. On the flip side, it is Morgan Gibbs-White. Now this one I don't think anybody will be even suggesting or looking at. The reason I'm going for him, or going to suggest him, is because he's just been in good form. And I think when we get to this point in the season where there's only one game, I think form goes a little bit kind of, to the window. The other side of the window. I don't even know what I'm chatting here. I'm just laying facts down for you that I think Morgan Gibbs-White is going to be a decent pickup for this game week. I think he could be my mega differential that I go for. As you can see, getting plenty of shots off, plenty of those on target, decent attacking returns in the past few weeks, and has just been returning steadily over those weeks. It's a big game against Chelsea, and it would not surprise me to see this man on the score sheet heading into that final game. But do I want to pick him over the likes of a Semenyo, over the likes of an Evan-Neilson? I probably don't. I think I'm going to stick with the betting data, go with what that is suggesting rather than taking that big gamble on Morgan Gibbs-White. So now we've ran through our transfer targets, let's take a look at the players in the side, how they potentially would be lining up for this game week. So starting off first is the Evan Nielsen move. It would, of course, require to me potentially bench one of Rodgers, Salah, or KDB. I think probably Morgan Rodgers would be the one that we would bench there, but I feel he could go off nuclear against Manchester United, of course, with their Europa League clash. Obviously, Villa still chasing down Champions League football as well, so I do kind of feel a little bit guilty benching Rodgers, and you never know what could happen in that Bournemouth game. Maybe Leicester get a shock result in that one with, of course, Bournemouth potentially on the beach, so this one potentially could have a little bit of room to kind of backfire on me, so I'm not 100% keen on the Evan Nielsen move for right now. The one that I'm a little bit more keen on is this one, to potentially bring in Saka. Now, we would be able to keep Morgan Rodgers within the side. It would, of course, though, make me get rid of either Mohamed Salah or Kevin De Bruyne. Depending on Kevin De Bruyne's minutes tonight, that could be the decision that obviously sways it as well. I think KDB is going to see an early substitution within that game because he'll want to, Pep will probably want him to get clapped off by the City fans. It's his final game. It just usually happens, doesn't it? A player on their final game of the season doesn't usually see out 90 minutes. They come off a little bit early, receive a round of applause, and I think KDB has been one of those Premier League legends that I think even the Fulham fans will probably clap him off when he, of course, is substituted out of that game for that one. So I think this is probably looking more likely the move to go for Saka, covers him off because he could be one of those players that goes massive in terms of the effective ownership and could help us, of course, creep within that side. The top 5k that of course we are looking at. In terms of early thoughts for captaincy, I think I'm probably going to be looking at Bowen and Mbeumo, Watkins, Saka and Salah. Initially, of course, I was probably going to give it to Salah, but recent weeks he's just not been delivering the goods. Can't guarantee Saka's minutes as well are going to be 100% secure. So I think the player that I would like to give the armband to this week is, of course, going to be Jarrod Bowen. He's on an absolute storm at the moment. I think it's now 5 weeks in a row that he has returned consistently. Whether or not he can do it for a 6 week is all going to be dependent on this Ipswich fixture, but it is an absolutely cracker for the final day of the season, and I've got a massive soft spot for Jarrod Bowen, so I really hope it comes through. I know a few people in the FPL community as well are looking at him in terms of captaincy for this game week, so could be a big boy move on the captain, and if he does go off, wow, we could be looking at some serious rank gain. That is going to conclude today's video. Of course, if you did enjoy it, make sure you're liking, commenting, and getting your questions in the chat. I'm losing my words a little bit today, but thank you very much for watching, and good luck in game week 38.